A record-breaking performance at Nationals. Temple's Faith Leary gets a career-high score and sets a couple program records in the process.
The volleyball team makes its way to the conference title game. Plus, the football team kicks off its spring practices.
OwlSports Update is live, and it starts right now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new edition of OwlSports Update. I'm Dom Gillespie, joined as always by Jackson Neal.
We have a jam-packed show for you today with postseason coverage for both gymnastics and volleyball, but we get started on the gridiron. The beginning of April means the start of spring football. The Cherry and White began practice on Monday as the team looks to rebound from a disappointing 2020 season, when the team took the field for the first time in over 4 months. Many players left early thanks to the transfer portal, but that leaves room for plenty of new faces. Last season, Temple was one of the hardest hit teams when it came to COVID in the country, and it showed on the field. The Owls went just 1-6. It was the first time since Al Golden's first year as head coach back in 2006 that the Cherry and White only recorded 1 win in a season. But as practices get going, it's clear that this is not the same team. In fact, there are 9 new transfers coming to North Broad. And those new players are giving head coach Rod Carey optimism going into next season.
The door swings both ways in the transfer portal, and it's not an exit only, it's also an entrance. And so we feel like we have done exactly what we should have done and improved.
Yeah, I trusted coach, and I spoke with Coach Carey about my plans and the whole nine. And that was a big factor. And of course, me being here and getting around him, I love the kid. So I'm happy with my decision.
You heard Coach Carey talk about it. The door swings both ways. This offseason has been like nothing this team has ever seen before, with a huge number of players leaving in the transfer portal and even more coming in. It's leading to many questions, but also a sense of optimism.
Temple football goes through rebuilds all the time with the hirings of new head coaches. But this year, the rebuild is a little bit different. This offseason, the use of the transfer portal has completely restructured this team, and whether it be learning a new offense for the players or evaluating the new talent for the coaching staff, there have been a lot of growing pains.
It was a first practice. It wasn't good enough. Got a lot of new faces, it's just, this is going to be something we got to grind at.
Since the end of last season, more than 15 players have left Temple football via the transfer portal, leaving the team with some big roles to fill. On top of a rebuild, the team is still dealing with the after effects of a 1-6 season, not to mention the impact of a current pandemic.
We're still under COVID protocol, so practice and us we're operating under that, but we're playing football, which is way different than it was.
Now with all the new faces coming in, it's easy to forget some of the old ones, but key players like safety Amir and Tyler want to make one thing clear. Temple is still the place for them.
The reason why I stayed is because I believe in Coach Carey. We had a one bad year, but it's a rebuild session. I believe what's going on. I believe his process.
With the entire spring and summer still to go, you can expect to see a lot of competition for starting positions, most notably in the quarterback room with DeJuan Mathis and Real Mitchell.
Coming up a bit later in the show, we'll take a look at some of those new faces that could make an impact come fall.
From a team in their offseason to a squad in the postseason, the Temple volleyball team earned a spot in the American Athletic Conference tournament and beat the University of Houston 3-1 in its semifinal matchup. The Cherry and White then took on the University of Central Florida in the conference championship, with a spot in the NCAA tournament on the line. We go out to Cincinnati, Ohio, where the Owls were trying to take down the 2-time defending conference champs. It was a back-and-forth matchup from the start. Here, Temple is keeping up with the Golden Knights, going point for point in the 4th set off this shot by Tyler Lindgren. But pretty soon, Central Florida showed why it's the reigning champs. The Golden Knights went on a 5-0 run to close out the final set. On the day, UCF hit for a .375 average with 11.5 blocks. Temple only managed a mark of .201 and 4 blocks. Central Florida's McKenna Melville had a match-high 26 points. She was named the AAC's Player of the Year, and the Golden Knights take down the Owls 3-1 to get their third straight conference title. Though the Owls came up a bit short in their AAC title run, they did return home with some hardware. Temple's Felinika Danielson was awarded Libero of the Year in the American. She is the first freshman in American Athletic Conference history to win a major award and becomes the Owls' first winner of the honor since joining the conference. Head coach Bakir Ganeshraham was also named the co-coach of the year alongside UCF's Taj Dagenis after leading the Owls to their first winning record since 2017. In Ganeshraham's 10 years at Temple, this is the first time he's won the award.
After pulling off a huge upset in the EAGL championship, the gymnastics team was set to compete at NCAA regionals as a whole team for the first time in 29 years. They were set to take on Arizona this past weekend with a chance of advancing even further, but their hopes were cut down just hours prior to the meet, thanks to COVID protocol and contact tracing. While the team as a whole was not allowed to compete in nationals, the individual Owls were, most noteworthy of them being Faith Leary, who notched an almost perfect score on the floor again with a 9.9. She had the exact same score at the conference championships a few weeks back. The only other Owl to compete was junior Juliana Rowland. She competed on the vault and tied her teammate Ariana Castrins for the highest vault score for a Temple Owl in NCAA history with a 9.85. That was good for 14th overall. It's not every day that history is made or when records are broken, but this was the case for Faith Leary at NCAA Regional semifinals. Leary competed on the floor and at the event dazzled the judges, earning a score of 9.9. This was a career-tying score for Leary, but this time it was good enough to tie for third overall in the event. The score also made her both the highest scoring and highest finishing gymnast for Temple in NCAA history. I'm sure the team will be glad to have her back next year as well.
Over to men's tennis, where Temple lost 6-1 at nationally ranked Tulsa on Wednesday. The lone win for the Cherry and White came in singles competition, where Thibaut Fromholz won in straight sets. The loss snapped the Owls' 6-match winning streak and drops them to 9-2 on the year. It was also Temple's first conference loss of the season. Moving forward, the Owls have a busy week scheduled with 5 matches in just 6 days, and it starts when they return to North Broad for a match against Colgate University on Saturday.
For the women, it was a screeching halt to the 6-game winning streak the team was currently on. The Owls would score the doubles point at the start of the day and then drop every singles match to the Golden Hurricane. The best matchup for the Owls would go to Alexandra Doronchenko. She had 2 very competitive sets against Shura Poppy, 6-4 and 7-5 respectively, but in the end it was not enough. Temple gets swept in the singles and needs to get back on track as the home stretch of the season still remains. Temple's next match will be a home game against LaSalle this coming Sunday. We are up against our first break of the day, but do not go anywhere. When we come back, hear how the men's soccer team is wrapping up the regular season.
We'll also take you down to the Schuylkill River, where the men's crew team kicked off their season in the Murphy Cup Regatta. Plus, the women's lacrosse team has been having an impressive season so far. They've been nationally ranked at points and are coming off back-to-back wins. But it's their schedule that's been the story recently. We'll update you on that when OwlSports Update returns.
Welcome back to OwlSports Update. The men's soccer team had 2 conference games this past weekend to wrap up the season. Starting off with Sunday's game against Memphis, Temple with some promising position early. Sean Karani crosses it and finds Mike Eigendahl to give Temple the lead in the 3rd minute. There would not be another goal until well into the second half when Memphis's Emmanuel Santos nets his 3rd goal of the year, and it's knotted at 1. The Owls managed to get 5 more shots on goal than the Tigers in this one, but Memphis never wanted to go away. At the end of regulation, the score would be 2-2. Extra time it is to find a winner in this one. Some sloppy play in the Tiger zone will give Amir Cohen the chance to win the game. Yes, not the prettiest goal, but it counts just the same. 3-2 is the final score. The first game of the weekend, Senior Day versus number 23 Tulsa. Temple took care of business for their seniors. Sean Karani gets the scoring going. He squeezes this by Tulsa's goaltender to give Temple an early lead. Add his assist against Memphis later in the week, and he set himself up for some hardware. Soon after, Jalen Campbell nets one of his own, and let me tell you, you can't ask for a better setup than that. Temple leads 2-0, and they never look back. Temple ended up committing 13 fouls in the match, but somehow were still able to get a comfortable win in this one by a final score of 4-1. Since the Owls won the 2 games this weekend, they control their own fate. If they upset SMU again this Saturday, they will make the conference playoffs. With the 2 wins over the weekend, the Owls have propelled themselves into a potential playoff spot. As it stands right now, they hold the last seed in the AAC tournament. If they win the last game of the season, they are in the dance. But if they lose and South Florida wins this coming weekend, then Temple will find itself from the outside looking in. The Owls' next game will be against the SMU Mustangs, who Temple shocked earlier this season. No matter how the next week shapes up, the best Temple could do is the 4 seed, so the top of the conference will be waiting for them once the postseason comes around, no matter what.
The crew team kicked off its season this past weekend at the Murphy Cup Regatta, and they did not disappoint. It was the first time they competed in a sprint meet in almost 2 years. The Varsity 8 boat won the only gold medal on the day, but it was still an impressive showing all around. The Freshman 8 took home a silver medal. The Lightweight 4 were able to capture a bronze medal as well, and the Lightweight 8 were able to get the Owls their second silver medal on the day. The whole team will be back in action again this Saturday in San Diego.
As mentioned, this was the first time the crew team has competed in a meet since May of 2019. They're one of the last teams to start their season for Temple, but don't get it twisted. They're still eager to get back on the water. OwlSports Updates' Tom Nemec has more.
About when the crew season was canceled due to COVID, it left Temple without an experienced Philadelphia rowers talk about from day one. Yes, the season has many races, but it all comes down to the Dadvale Regatta on the Schuylkill River.
Just like the time away has kind of let us forget what it's like to get up to the race course, line up, and hear the start gun go off.
Like over half of our team has never raced in like a Dadvale Regatta, our championship regatta.
But that will change in early May when the best teams in the country descend on Philly. Still, there's a lot of work to be done before then. The Owls went about an entire year without working together on the water.
We made the most of it. We still were in touch. Guys were still, pushing each other, whether it be, going on like an 8-mile run and then someone's like, oh, I want to do 10 miles.
The hard work paid off for the Owls this offseason, even if it was on dry land. The Varsity 8 won gold and brought the Murphy Cup back home to Temple. It was a full team effort, however, as the freshmen and lightweight 8s brought home silver and the freshman 4s brought home bronze.
This team is by far through and through the most mature, most experienced team that I've been on in a while.
6 meets over the next 4 weeks. That is all the Owls have left to make up for a missed season before they compete in the Dadvale Regatta in early May. This is Thomas Nemec, OwlSports Update.
Temple's rowing and crew teams will be right back on the water this weekend. After winning bronze at the Murphy Cup Regatta, the women's rowing team will return to the Schuylkill River as they're going head-to-head with LaSalle and George Mason this Saturday. And the men's crew team will try to earn their second gold of the season after their first place finish at the Murphy Cup when they head out to the West Coast. They'll compete in the San Diego Crew Classic in Southern California this Saturday. Another Temple team that is traveling for competition is the cheerleading squad that will be going down to Florida for nationals. For more on the team, we welcome in OwlSports Update's Emily Cochran, who is live at Pearson McGonigal. Hi, Emily.
Thanks, Jackson. In a non-COVID world, the Temple cheerleaders would have ended their season in January. But thanks to the pandemic, their season has been extended all the way till April. I spoke with head coach Jenna Komozinski and a few other Temple cheerleaders about how they're preparing for the youth.
We see them on the football field. We see them on the basketball court. But what about their off season? Or should I say, their on season?
We really don't have an off season.
I think a lot of people see us cheering on the sidelines, but there's also a competitive aspect of cheerleading.
Each year, the team travels to Orlando for the UCA College National Championship. That's about 1,000 miles to perform a 2-minute and 30-second routine.
Those 2 minutes and 30 seconds are pretty much everything.
Last year, less than half a point separated first and second place in the game day D1 division. The Owls took home the silver medal, falling only to UNLV.
We've placed 5th, we've placed 3rd, we've placed 2nd last year, and I feel like we're in a good spot and I really want to win.
These Owls practice up to 10 hours weekly, training from 8 to 10 at night, and sometimes 4-hour practices on the weekends.
The team is made up of 29 girls, about 50% of them being newcomers who have never competed on a collegiate level. But clearly, the talent speaks for itself.
I know this team has put in a ton of work. There's lots of motivation, lots of different personalities, and lots of different reasons why we all want to win.
This team of 29 will hit the mat on April 27th. If they score high enough, they will compete in finals the following day, hoping they can add another piece of hardware to their collection, but this time, gold.
The Owls will be going up against some of the biggest D1 schools in the country. But for now, let's take a look at some of their stats from last season. At the 2020 UCA National Championship, the Owls placed second in the D1 Game Day division, scoring a 9.383. The team fell short by less than 1 point as UNLV scored a 94.7. They have placed fifth, third, and second within the last 5 years. But these Owls are putting in 10 to 14 hours a week to ensure that they finally come out on top and earn those gold medals. Reporting from McGonigal Hall, I'm Emily Cochran. Dom and Jackson, back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Emily. And with that, it's time for us to take another timeout, but don't go anywhere. Coming up on the other side, we break down the most important transfers for the football team this offseason and get an update on the lacrosse team. OwlSports Update, we'll be right back. Welcome back to OwlSports Update. We turn our attention back to the football team and more specifically, the new transfers that are coming to North Broad. There are 9 new players that joined the Cherry and White from the transfer portal, and we want to take a look at 3 of the most important names. And where better to start than with the most important position on the field, quarterback Dewan Mathis transfers in from the University of Georgia. Now, while it's currently an open competition for the starting spot, it's hard to imagine a more qualified player on the Owls roster. Mathis was a 4-star recruit back in 2019, but he only saw action in 1 game for the Bulldogs last season when he threw for 55 yards in a win against Arkansas. But remember the last signal caller to transfer from Athens to a northern school? It was a player by the name of Justin Fields, who went to Ohio State and is now a likely top 3 NFL pick. Now to get to one of the players who Mathis might be handing off to next season, it's running back Ravon Bonner, who comes in from the University of Illinois. He opted out of last season due to COVID concerns, but before 2020, he had a productive career in Champaign, rushing for over 800 yards and 10 TDs. He also has some history with Temple's staff. Owls receivers coach Thad Ward was the running backs coach at Illinois during Bonner's time there. Bonner is now a senior and will be battling for snaps with fellow transfer Iverson Clement, who is coming in from the University of Florida. And now to our final impact transfer. Defensive back Keyshawn Paul comes in from the University of Connecticut. While he likely won't be the #1 corner at the start of the season, don't be surprised if he quickly rises up the depth chart. In 2019, Paul was one of the best defensive backs in the nation. He allowed just a 24% completion percentage in press coverage. Now, it might take him some time to return to those numbers, as UConn canceled its season last year because of COVID. But after some reps at practice, he could develop into a major piece on Temple's defense. Now, as we take a look at all 3 of these players, it's time to make some predictions as to who is going to have the biggest impact. Personally, I'm taking Dewan Mathis as my pick. He's one of the most celebrated recruits to ever come to Temple, and if the story of Justin Field tells us anything, it's that Kirby Smart & Co. don't always have the best evaluations when it comes to quarterbacks. Now, Dom, who are you taking?
I'm going to have to go with Ravon in this one. Ray Davis transferred out in the middle of last season, so that running back room is going to need a lot of help, and a couple of offensive linemen are gone this season too, so the running back is going to be that much more important in the run game. Ravon Bonner's my guy.
It certainly will be an interesting offense to watch. And well, even though practices are now getting started, we still have a little time before Temple kicks off their first game. The Owls will get their season started the first Saturday in September as they travel to take on Rutgers. Temple's home opener will come a couple weeks later when they host Boston College. It will be a homecoming for former Owls linebacker Isaiah Graham-Mobley, who just transferred to the Eagles this offseason. One of the toughest stretches on the schedule will come in early October when Temple will take on Memphis and Cincinnati to open up conference play. The Bearcats just finished last season ranked 8th in the country. Overall, the Owls have 12 games on the schedule, 6 on the road, and 6 at home. From Lincoln Financial Field to Howarth Field, we now go over to the lacrosse team, where both of its games against the University of Cincinnati were postponed last week due to COVID-19 issues and contact tracing within the Owls program. But the 2 teams won't have to wait long to make up the games. The 2 contests have been rescheduled for Friday and Sunday at the University of Cincinnati. It's an important weekend set for the Cherry and White as they currently sit at 2-2 in the conference with just 6 games remaining before the AAC tournament. But cancellations and postponements aren't the only changes to the Owls schedule this season. For more on this, we bring in Bella Diamore, who is over on the Plasma. Hi, Bella.
Thanks, Jackson. Those 2 Cincy postponements are the first ones for the Owls this season. Just about every other weekend, it's 2 games in 3 days, which has been both a physical and mental adjustment.
the women's lacrosse team is nearing the end of its 2021 season. For head coach Bonnie Rosen, the biggest challenge wasn't the teams on the schedule, but instead how the schedule is laid out. This season, the Owls are competing in 2-game weekend series against conference opponents, one game on Friday and another on Sunday. The idea was to limit the amount of travel, but games so close together does take a toll on the athletes.
2 games within 3 days is a physical challenge in our sport. I mean, lacrosse is a very fast-paced sport that also is pretty physical. So the recovery between games just physically is challenging at times.
After losing back-to-back games in their first series of the season against Florida, the Owls had to prioritize their performance versus the opponent.
We had a lot to improve on as a team as a whole, so we kind of focused on ourselves more than ODU and just tried to practice more of our defense, more of our offensive sets and our shooting.
While the Owls may not have games during the week, one remaining challenge for Temple is the turnaround to fix their errors one weekend in time to properly prepare for the next weekend. As Temple heads into its next 2-game series at Cincy, Coach Rosen is prepping all of her players, even those who may have the least amount of experience, to guarantee the freshest legs on the field for those big game moments. Temple is currently 3rd in the AAC. Top 4 teams make the playoffs, and the way it's set up, 2 wins versus Cincy, would put Temple in the driver's seat for a postseason berth. Reporting from the studio set, I'm Bella D. Moore. Jackson, back to you.
Thank you so much, Bella. We're going to take one last break of the show. OwlSports Update will be right back. Welcome back to OwlSports Update. The Temple fencing season is over, but not before some history. The squad had a record-breaking 6 fencers qualify for nationals, even though it was one of its younger teams in quite some time. OwlSports Update's Josh Safran has more.
When head coach Nikki Frank first came through Temple's doors, there was no such thing as a fencing program. That was 1972. And 49 years later, Coach Frank is still breaking program records with her nationally ranked team, this time by sending a record 6 Temple fencers to the NCAA championships amidst the pandemic.
It changed how we trained, it changed how we prepared. Some of the early competitions that we normally have in the fall helped with that transition for our freshmen to college fencing, and we didn't have those. And so they were just thrown in.
Apparently, those freshmen were good at learning on the fly, as 5 of the 6 fencers to qualify for championships were underclassmen.
Seniors were fabulous this year, and they were clearly leaders. They clearly set the tone for the team. They were the ones that the underclassmen really looked to.
My upperclassmen passed it to me, and I got passed to these guys before I'm out of here.
At a school known for its basketball, fencing is the closest thing Temple has to a dynasty right now. Last season, the Owls beat the top-ranked team in the nation and finished the season in 5th. And while there were no standings this season in the shortened year, Temple did more than enough to prove they can hang with the best.
I really want our team to get at least top 3. Personally, I think one of my fencing goals is to at least be top 3 in NCAAs. I really hope to qualify for the next 3 years. I think we could do it.
Reporting for OwlSports Update, I'm Josh Safran.
And that will do it for this episode of OwlSports Update.
Remember to stay tuned next week for a new edition of Owl Access Pass with Brooklyn Vaughn and Adam Cernali. For Jackson Neal and the entire OwlSports Update crew, have a great weekend, Owl fans.